Hello, I was born in 2001 and I'm on a mission to experience games that existed before I did. Today we have a fantastic lineup of 90s classics, with demons, monkeys, mystery and more. I am super excited. If you have any retro game recommendations of your own, then please leave them in the comments below. I'm always looking to expand my to-do list. Anyhow, on to number 1. Doom, the founding father of first-person shooters. Developed by id Software and released in 1993, Doom was an instant success, with an estimated 3.5 million copies sold by 1999. However, it also caused more than its fair share of controversies, mostly due to the high levels of graphic violence and satanic imagery. This resulted in it being bestowed with one of gaming's earliest mature 17+ ratings. Its impact on the video game industry cannot be understated, with its mega success being an inspiration to future developers for many years to come. But how does it play? Well, I really enjoyed myself. The graphics and the player characters and ability to look up or down weren't major hurdles. I got used to them pretty quickly because I'm not a complete fucking idiot. The gunplay, although as basic as it is, was really satisfying. I think the super simple visuals really helped here. I could see my gun firing, I could see when my bullet is hitting. Plus, the lack of a vertical aiming axis simplified things even further. Shoot in general direction of bad guy dies. The modern Doom games are great, but I don't think you can beat the sheer power of turning off your brain for half an hour and shooting demons. No upgrades, no glory kills, and not much of a story. I'm not saying that these are bad things. I love a good glory kill. I just think that the original Doom still has a place amongst its much younger siblings as a pure demon killing time sink that doesn't require too much brain power. Case in point, I shot through the levels pretty quickly. I wasn't trying to get the fastest time, but I also wasn't too concerned with getting every last secret or scouring the map for the last 2 enemies. I was just having a good time, focused on finding my way forward and killing anything that got in my way. There was 1 or 2 times when I got a little confused and couldn't find a button to open a door, but I think that's just because my brain has been destroyed by decades of drinking bleach and sniffing glue. I do think the enemy variety is a little underwhelming. It felt like most of them were just humanoids that shoot at you, and then a couple that tried to melee. And before you complain, I do understand that there were technical limitations, and to be honest, the lack of variety wasn't much of an issue. It's just really the only thing that I could think of, and that's why I even mentioned it. Overall, I had a good time. Just zoned out killing demons. I was also playing on the Xbox version that includes a pretty cool remastered soundtrack, which I preferred over the original. If that bugs you because I'm supposed to be experiencing retro games and not enjoying the updated, remastered aspects, then you're in for a surprise when you see game number 3. Released in 1994, Donkey Kong Country was developed by Rare Limited. You know, the Xbox pirate people.
Captain!
Yeah?
No!
It was considered to have had a revolutionary influence by setting the standard for graphics in gaming. This is because Donkey Kong Country was the game that popularized and widely introduced pre-rendered 3D graphics to home consoles. This technique allows developers to create visually stunning, highly detailed graphics on hardware that lacked the processing power for real-time 3D rendering. The actual gameplay itself looks pretty standard for a 2D platformer, and I didn't expect much coming into this. And what do you know? It's a pretty bog-standard 2D platformer. The controls themselves were pretty basic: D-pad to move, a jump button, and an interact/special button. The goal of the game: get through the 2D levels while avoiding death. You can jump on most of the enemies to kill them, with the exception of these spiky wasp fucks. And you gather bananas. And some other random collectibles like golden animals or Kong's surname letter by letter. That seems to be most of it. I did see a pretty neat water level, but it still wasn't anything amazing. I mean, platformers themselves had already been around for like a decade already, and I just didn't think they were doing much new in terms of gameplay. I also died a lot. couldn't quite get used to the jump distances and timings, but I'm like 99% sure that's just me sucking at 2D platformers, and you can't blame Donkey Kong for the fact that I'm just a cack-handed twat. Overall, even with my last 20 seconds of complaining, I don't think Donkey Kong Country is a bad game. Far from it, actually. I imagine it was amazing leap when it released, but personally, I don't think it holds up today, and I won't be going back to it anytime soon. Sorry if that annoys you, but then again, I'm a stranger on the internet. Why the fuck do you care what I think? Grim Fandango, released in 1998, is a classic narrative-driven adventure puzzle game that was highly praised for its fantastic characters, witty dialogue, atmospheric Art Deco visuals, amazing soundtrack, and compelling story of love, betrayal, and corruption in the afterlife. It is also not what I'm playing. This is Grim Fandango Remastered, which released in 2015 and was a lot easier to get my hands on. Right, I know the whole point of these videos is to try games from before I existed, and this remaster came into existence after I did. However, it's, just a remaster, and from what I can tell, it's a pretty authentic one. I think it can be excused. Now that's out of the way, Grim Fandango has been on my to-do list for quite a few years, ever since my dad actually recommended it to me in my early teens. However, I was quite a forgetful little hermit, so it remained in my backlog until now. Our character, Manuel Manny Calavera, is paying off a debt of accrued sins by working as a travel agent for the DoD, the Department of Death, which basically means he's one of many Grim Reapers tasked with escorting souls from the land of the living to the land of the dead. Once in the land of the dead, also known as the 8th Underworld, travel agents like Manny need to determine how quickly and comfortably the soul deserves to reach heaven, also known as the 9th Underworld, or the land of eternal rest, and this is done by weighing how good or evil the person was during their life. The better person you were, the faster you get to heaven. Pretty simple, really. The slowest method to the land of eternal rest, usually saved for the not-so-kind folk, is walking. To be more specific, a 4-year-long walk, during which many souls lose hope and decide to stay in the land of the dead instead. Quicker methods for the nicer people include fast cars, luxury cruisers, or, if you've been an absolute saint, the best option is a ticket on the number 9 train, which takes only 4 minutes to reach the gates of heaven. This is what most souls dream of. This confuses Manny, because when his latest client... Clients are the souls that the travel agents are escorting. This confuses Manny, because when his latest client, a soul by the name of Mercedes Meche Colomar, fuck, I butchered that, who definitely deserved a number 9 ticket, was instead being assigned the awful 4-year walk. This unknowingly sets Manny off on an adventure that delves into the corruption that plagues the land of the dead. The gameplay itself is pretty basic. It's a point-and-click adventure, so to move the character you point your mouse to the desired location and click. I think you can also use the arrow keys, but I couldn't get it to work. Objects can be interacted with in 4 main ways. You can try to pick them up, you can look at them, you can try to use them, and you can try to use items in Manny's hands with them. Alongside these basic interactions, Manny can also talk to the other residents of the underworld in order to find useful info or just uncover some funny quips. The writing is great, and the puzzles are unique. They really force you to think outside the box, like attaching a trophy to some rope to use as a grapple hook to get to a roof where you hide a balloon in a dish with some bread so it pops when the birds try eating the bread and it scares them away so you can steal their eggs. And then you can give those eggs to some guy who just wants to raise them as carrier pigeons. Stay weird, Tim. Oh yeah, I should also mention that Grim Fandango was developed by LucasArts, which, in of itself, is pretty cool, but it was directed by Tim Schafer. 2 years after Grim Fandango's release, Tim created Double Fine Productions, and went on to develop a bunch of cool cult classics like Psychonauts, Broken Age, Brutal Legend, Costume Quest, and then they also remastered a bunch of LucasArts games, like Day of the Tentacle, which Tim designed when he worked at LucasArts, Full Throttle, which Tim co-designed when he worked at LucasArts, and this! And what makes this even cooler is that Double Fine Productions puts a whole lot of effort into documenting the creation of their games. There's literally a 30-minute documentary following the behind-the-scenes production of Grim Fandango Remaster. So if you're a massive game development geek like me, I highly recommend taking a look at their website or YouTube channel. I'll leave links to both below. Anyway, enough fangirling. Needless to say, Grim Fandango is a fantastic game. However, I did have one or two problems. The first one is just I'm too stupid to solve some of the puzzles. That's a skill issue. The second problem was the amount of times I spent just waiting for what felt like unnecessarily long animations to finish. Like, there's a 10-second walking animation after entering the roof before you regain control. Why? Then again, it's pretty minor in the grand scheme of things, and overall, I liked Grim Fandango. I think it requires that I sit down for a full weekend with a few supplies, and maybe an emergency guide online when I inevitably get stuck, and I just don't have the time or self-discipline. I mean, there's still 2 more games in this video alone, and the first 3 have taken me like a week to record, script and edit, and one of them is a massive RPG. I need a nap. Several years before Todd Howard got his grubby little fingers on the series, Black Isle Studios, or as most of you know them, Obsidian Entertainment, released Fallout 2 in 1998. The second ever installment in the Fallout series, video game series, takes place 80 years after the first, and has you play the role of the Chosen One, a descendant of the first game's protagonist who must save their village of Arroyo from starvation by finding the legendary Garden of Eden creation kit, or GECK, a Vault-Tec device capable of terraforming the wasteland. After greeting the new neighbours, I kick things off with the character creation screen. Those of you that have played any Fallout game will likely recognise the special stats that dictate your playstyle. Whether you go all in on a melee tank with an IQ in the negatives, or if you're more inclined to go for a Rick Sanchez style evil genius, it's all done through the assigning of points to either strength, perception, endurance, charisma, intelligence, agility, or luck. I had heard that Fallout 1 and 2 were pretty unforgiving, so I did some research into where I should put my points. The key aspects of the build are maxed out agility to aid in battle, a higher intelligence to increase skill gain, gifted and small frame as traits to assist with an easier start and easier battles, and finally the chosen skills were small guns, big guns and speech. After this, I was off into the world of Fallout 2. I've played more than my fair share of the modern Fallout games, like New Vegas, 3, 4 and 76. I even sank a bit of time into the Fallout Shelter mobile game. But Fallout 2 is a different beast. The biggest and most obvious differences is the isometric view and the turn-based combat system. I have mixed opinions on these. The isometric view looks old school, but stuff like that never really bothered me. The combat, however, I wasn't a fan. The best way I could find of killing the ants and rad scorpions throughout the intro was trying to kick them, which has somewhere between a 30 and a 40% chance of actually hitting, and then running away and waiting for the enemies to take their turn, and then repeating. This was immensely boring. And I love turn-based combat. Rogue Trader is one of my favourite games, but good god, I spent about an hour just kicking, missing and running. I'm sure it speeds up a little when you've leveled up a few times and acquired a companion, but I don't have that kind of patience. It's not all bad though. One of the things I've always wished was more present in the modern games is the Enclave. I know they're not fully ignored, and there's story-related reasons as to why they're not as prominent, but I really enjoy the faction and their lore, so I would have loved to see more of them. And I say this a lot, this is just personal preference. A lot of people really enjoy the classic Fallout CRPGs, and I can understand why. However, as a Gen Z, my attention span is around 3 minutes, so if I'm spending half of my play session running away from scorpions, I'm just gonna load up Fallout 4 instead. Then again, Fallout 4's intro takes fucking ages. Is it just me? Am I the problem? Probably. Ultra Dario. No, fuck. Super Mario 64 was released in 1996, establishing the blueprint for modern 3D platformers. It introduced intuitive analog control, dynamic camera systems, and explorable 3D worlds. This set the standard for nearly every 3D platformer that followed. Super Mario 64 sold nearly 12 million copies by 2015, and yet I still have never experienced it for myself. I've actually missed out on most Mario games just because we never really went for Nintendo consoles growing up. This also means that I've never played Zelda, literally none of them, but Ocarina of Time is planned for another video, so if you want to see that, please subscribe. Back to the man of the moment, Mario. As I mentioned earlier, Super Mario 64 was praised for many of the new gameplay mechanics that it championed, like intuitive analog controls and dynamic camera systems. But what the fuck are they, I hear you ask? And my response to that question is, calm down, knobhead, I was just getting to that. They basically mean that Mario 64 uses the analog sticks to move the character and the camera, but the camera is also able to move in a full 360-degree range and wasn't fixed in relation to the camera. Pretty standard stuff nowadays, but revolutionary in 1996. I think. I wasn't alive. I don't know. The game begins with the promise of cake, and Mario jumps at the chance. Literally. We show up outside Princess's castle only to discover that we're a part of some dodgy reality TV show directed by some floating turtles. Making our way inside, we found out that Bowser has taken over the castle and trapped all of the residents inside, including our cake. And the princess too, I guess she's also pretty important on our quest for baked goods. The camera took a little getting used to, but I felt confident in my grasp of the controls pretty early on. No wonder this game did so well, playing it just feels so natural. It's not too easy, it's not too hard, the controls feel fun and intuitive, and the goal is pretty simple: get stars. You can get them by collecting 8 red coins, completing a number of side objective style stuff, or by completing the main objective for each area. Sometimes this is like a boss, like the big fat bomb boy, or the big fat wall boy, or the big fat dinosaur turtle. Well, spoilers. We'll get to that. Gathering stars unlocks doors within the castle. Behind those doors are more paintings and therefore more levels with more stars to unlock more doors and more levels. The ultimate goal in each area of the castle is to gain enough stars to unlock the star door, which is the gateway to the next big story moment. Other than that, you're left to your own devices really. You decide which stars you want to gather from which worlds. There's even a few secret ones hidden around the castle itself. I decided to follow what felt like the golden path, defeating Bomberman and Flat Stanley before returning to these worlds to gather a couple more stars. There was also the water level, but I kind of sped through that. I don't like water levels. Once I had the 8 stars required for the first star door, I progressed through and fell into a trap. This trap turned out to be quite successful, as I died a couple times right at the beginning just trying to grab a single red coin. I gave up on that and got through the rest of the obstacle course pretty easily. This is when I finally came face to face with Jack Black. He tried to scare me, so I utilised my masterful spinning and throwing skill, pretending he was some sort of invasive species and I was the type of Florida man that hunts poisonous snakes for a hobby. This is when Thanos finally acquired the Mind Stone and snapped half the population into oblivion. Overall, very fun, and I would play it again. I'm curious to see how it played on the original N64 using the original controller and whatnot, although to get my hands on that would cost money, and I'm in a constant state of having no money. Overall, another pretty good selection of games. The old school Donkey Kong and Super Mario were great to have ticked off my list. Fallout 2 fell a bit short of my expectations. I really wanted to like it because I love RPGs, but the pacing and the balancing was just a little off for me personally. I may give it another try in the future. Grim Fandango was great. Its unique art style, witty dialogue and fun characters were massively entertaining. However, I would probably require a guide to actually complete the whole thing. Finally, Doom. Doom was my favourite of the day. Its bare bones shooting and level traversal are things that I thought would make it feel dated and boring, but it was quite a pleasant and chill demon slaying experience. I will be returning to it, maybe with a beer and some snacks so I can go full gamer slob. In my recent search efforts for new retro games to try, I asked around my workplace for recommendations and ended up with a list of over 100 games. I'm not trying them in any particular order, it's just whatever I feel like trying, so if you've got any retro game recommendations, please drop them in the comments below and I might try them out. Anyway, that's it for today. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed, please like and subscribe. I'm having fun making these videos, and it would be great to know what you think about them. Also, please don't recommend any more Final Fantasies. I've got like 6 of the fuckers on my list. I'm not playing them all.